Today we're doing two NFL player props here on Monday Night Football. We got two Monday Night Football games, Ravens, Buccaneers, and Cardinals, Chargers. Before we get started, you guys, link in the description below. Hop into the Discord, $9.30 per month, 31 cents per day. Again, that's where I post all the plays I'm making on PrizePicks. We have other caps in there as well. So overall, you guys, super positive community. Everyone in the Discord just trying to help each other cash. Also, mention I'm not a gambling expert, and this is not financial advice. Simply just plays I'm personally looking at making. Hopefully, give you guys some insight and analysis to make your own player prop decisions here. Again, no one's pressing submit on those parlays other than yourselves. But let's get right into it, you guys. I got two player props, one player prop from each game here. The first one's going to be Tampa Bay, Baltimore. The first play is going to be Baker Mayfield over at 19 fantasy score. But really quickly, before I get into this play, you guys, I want to talk about Daily Grind Fantasy. Again, Daily Grind, I do mention it in every video. The DFS Optimizer is an absolute elite tool that I do use on a regular basis to add plays into my parlays right here on Daily Grind, the DFS Optimizer, which you can see here. It basically does all the hard work for you. It takes the lines from all the major sports books, gives you 1% odds to hit, showing you the line discrepancies that there are on sports books compared to what they are on PrizePicks. You can use this whether you're on underdog, parlay play, better picks, hot streak, rebet city, sleeper, whatever it may be. If you are on those platforms, you go to Daily Grind, sign up. You can use the link in the description below of this video. You can get 25% off your first month using promo code TUFF. Just a ton of upside here overall using the Daily Grind Fantasy DFS Optimizer. Like, for example, Derrick Henry under 16 fantasy score. Because sportsbooks don't offer fantasy score lines, they take those lines, rushing yards, rushing attempts, rushing touchdowns, and they combine them based on those lines what their fantasy score line would be. So example, on Pinnacle, one of the sharpest sports books in the world, 13.9 fantasy points is what his fantasy score line would be on Pinnacle. It's at 16 on PrizePicks, giving us essentially a discrepancy, 55.29% odds to hit. And again, this updates in real time, you guys. Again, absolute elite research tool. Link in description below, promo code TUFF, 25% off your first month. But let's get into it, you guys. Baker Mayfield over 19 fantasy score is the first play. Taking a look at this one here, it is a home game for Baker in Tampa Bay. Nice over-under, great spread, or great game total, great spread for Baker in this matchup. 3.5-point underdogs at home, 50.5 game total. 50.5 game total, which, again, very strong. Baker's over this line, though, in four of 6 games. One miss coming with 18.8. And he's had some absolutely massive games. But for me, right off the bat, if we look at Baker and we look at his pass attempts line and what's that at price, it's at 35.5, right? So book's giving us, let's just say he throws the ball 34 times. Okay, it's at 35.5. So let's just say he goes under this, still throws the ball 34 times. This season, when he's thrown the ball, essentially 36 plus times, you can see 25.9 fantasy and 28.9 fantasy. So the pass attempts correlate significantly to his fantasy score. Obviously, it would for most quarterbacks, right? He's obviously gone over the line here, as you can see as well, when he goes under this passing attempts line. But if you go back to, last season for Baker Mayfield, when he has these types of pass attempts games, he's had some pretty massive games as far as getting over this 19 fantasy score point line. And I think there's going to be a ton of volume for Baker Mayfield tonight. As you can see, the Baltimore Ravens allow the fewest yards per carry in the NFL. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers already love to pass the ball way more than they do like to run the ball, essentially. I mean, Rashad White, Bucky Irving, they're good running backs, but both of them are kind of more pass-catching Swiss Army knife type of running backs. That neither one of them are considered bell cow backs. And when you're facing the Ravens defense, which are allowing only 2.87 yards per carry, as well as the third fewest rushing attempts per game, literally the third fewest. So they're not allowing people to do, or players to do, anything on the ground, which is why I think Baker Mayfield's line obviously is set at 35.5, and it makes sense. The Ravens' two quarterbacks this season are allowing the third most total fantasy points per game. They are allowing and again, it correlates well because their run-stopping defense is so tough. They are allowing, pass attempts. I don't know where pass attempts or pass completions. The Ravens, this is to quarterbacks. I swear right here, 149 passing yards. They're up there. Third highest passing yards, passing touchdowns. Fifth highest passing touchdowns. We look at quarterbacks' fantasy score game log this season. Versus the Ravens, we've seen 3 different quarterbacks smash this line. Jaden Daniels, 21. Dak Prescott, 29.9. And Joe Burrow, 34.8. Again, Josh Allen had that super weird game where they were just blown up from the very beginning in Baltimore. And then Gardner Minshew, obviously at 13.9. We know he doesn't have the upside of Baker Mayfield. And then Patrick Mahomes, 15.1, who, again, just has had not the explosive type of offensive year, right, that Baker Mayfield's having. Like, Baker Mayfield debatably has the best wide receiver room in football. When you talk about Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, And given how he's going to throw the ball 34, 35, 36, 37 plus times in this one, I just think there's too much upside given the game total and given them being 3.5-point underdogs, right? Obviously, it makes a ton of sense to take Baker in this spot. I really did debate his pass attempts lines as well as his pass completions lines, but I think obviously if he can hit those pass attempts, pass completions line, he has a ton of upside to hit the fantasy score. Just given how he's played this season, given how he's played at home as well. I mean, like I said, on the season, he's over in 4 of 6 games. Just absolutely had some incredible games, right? 28, 25, 29, 23 fantasy points, only missed finishing with 18.8. I mean, if you look at this, like he's had rushing upside as well this season, pretty decent rushing upside, and we know the Ravens will like to blitz, they like to put pressure to the quarterback, which I think will help his rushing upside here as well. And then you kind of look at his home versus away splits, he's just been elite at home. 808 passing yards, 71.8% passing completion percentage, 7 touchdowns to 1 interception. Just been absolutely elite, right? Been super efficient. And I really just think it's a great spot given the game total. So I like Baker Mayfield over 19. I would play this up to 19.5 probably, but at 19 I think it's some good value. Last night it was at 18.5 when I was kind of first starting to look at the board. But Baker Mayfield over 19 fantasy score. The second one, I'm looking at J.K. Dobbins. I like J.K. Dobbins' spot here. I like his over 15.5 fantasy score. Right off the bat, J.K. Dobbins is obviously having a bounce back season. We look at this matchup here. Interesting matchup, 44.5 game total, 1.5 point spread. The Chargers are going to be 1.5 point favorites on the road here in Arizona. But J.K. Dobbins is over this line. I'm pretty sure he's over this line in 3 or 4 of 6 games this season. I think, no, they had a bye. So he's over this line in 3 of 5 games this season. And his 2 unders come in a very, very tough matchup, right? Kansas City, everyone knows you can't really run the ball, and running backs have an extremely tough time versus Kansas City, and then 8.4 here against Pittsburgh. And if you kind of look at running backs' opponent rank here in this column, I mean, he's faced Vegas, which is 25th versus the running back. He had 22.9. Carolina's the dead last versus the running back. He had 20.1. In both these games here, he was kind of splitting the backfield with Gus Edwards. Faced Denver, the 13th ranked opponent versus running back, had 18.2. And that was really the first game without Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards is out for this game. In that last game, coming off the bye, J.K. Dobbins had 25 rushing attempts. We know Jim Harbaugh, the Chargers, they love to run the football. They're looking to run the football here. And without Gus Edwards, it's going to be just so much volume, I think, for J.K. Dobbins in this matchup, right? Like, also, if you take a look at the injury report, Joey Bosa is looking doubtful, which I think can just help this game become kind of a little bit more of the shootout, or just have this game remain a little closer, I guess, in general, with Joey Bosa not being able to get to the quarterback significantly on the other side. But then you look at Hayden Hurst. He's doubtful. He's a tight end for the Chargers who gets reps, gets targets. Quentin Johnson is doubtful as well. He's a tight end that gets, or he's a wide receiver that gets targets. And Ladd McConkey, he's questionable. I'm most likely he's probably going to play. But we're talking about Hayden Hurst and Quentin Johnson, 2 significant pass-catching guys in this offense that are doubtful for this game, which I think just increases the upside for them wanting to, get the ball in J.K. Dobbins' hands and just really let him eat, right? Like, you really give him the type of volume that they've been giving him all season. I just think there's no reason for him not to see. I mean, we're talking about 25-plus attempts, plus, I mean, he's running 16, 13-plus routes. Seeing a decent amount of targets, I think the receiving work out the backfield is only increasing week by week. So I think 20-plus touches for J.K. Dobbins in this game is literally not out the question at all. Given the matchup as well, it's a pretty strong matchup versus the Cardinals. We look at running backs versus the Cardinals this season. The Cardinals are allowing the 5th most fantasy points to the running back position, 21.6. 21.6 fantasy points per game to the running back position. They're allowing the 11th most yards per carry, 4.68. Overall, just a ton of upside. They've also given up 5 total rushing touchdowns too, which is a decent number. And we kind of look at just J.K. Dobbins in his career when he does see this type of volume. I mean, in his career when he has 10 plus rushing attempts, it obviously goes back to Baltimore too, with 10 plus rushing attempts. But I mean, we're talking about back then he really wasn't seeing the receiving upside that he's kind of seeing now. But you can see the hit rate on this type of line when J.K. Dobbins does see that volume. Obviously, he's a super talented back, has had a ton of injury history and things like that. But the hit rate for other running backs this season, specifically, running backs against the Arizona Cardinals, you can see the type of hit rate as well. I mean, David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs both put up 16 plus. I mean, David Montgomery put up 21. Jerry McNichols and Brian Robinson both put up 20 plus against the Arizona Cardinals at Arizona. And again, these top fantasy scoring games have all come at Arizona. I don't know what it is, but you can see here 5 different running backs have had 15 fantasy points against Arizona, and they've all come on the road in Arizona. Not sure if that makes any sort of difference or whatever, but you can see, I mean, we've seen 7 different running backs have at least 12 PPR fantasy points. I mean, Josh Jacobs had 12, but then his backup had 8.3, right? So 20 combined PPR fantasy points for those Packers running backs. And again, there's just so much upside with how Gus Edwards is out, and again, 20 plus touches for J.K. Dobbins in this one, considering the wide receivers. I mean, Quentin Johnson, Hayden Hurst are both out for this one, or doubtful, sorry. And then also you kind of look at the odds when you look at fantasy score lines, and over anytime touchdown, right, for J.K. Dobbins. Pretty nice odds for us in this one, considering that if he does get this, I mean, minus 135 on FanDuel, minus 135 on Caesars to score a touchdown tonight. If he scores a touchdown, this 15.5 fantasy score line is going to be looking real close, real nice for us, I think, in my opinion. If he can catch 2 to 3 passes, I mean, I think I want to say, depending on game script, but I want to say he's pretty much a lock for like 80 plus rushing yards in this one. So again, I like Baker Mayfield over 19, J.K. Dobbins over 15.5. 2 play props Monday Night Football. You guys take a look at all the links in the description below. Please drop a like, hit that subscribe button, and as always, let's catch.